good morning, good morning. It is 11 o'clock. So let's giddy up. This Councilmember Hancock and Councilmember Lawson, we're here to start our transportation, airports, and public works meeting. Our goal is to ensure excellent infrastructure that is well maintained and operated. I like to say that just to remind us, just in case we forget. So I understand, we'll welcome everybody, first of all. Thank you all for being here. Let's get into the March 20th, 2025 minutes. Councilmember Lawson, do you have any changes, amendments, additions, or deletions?
No changes, and I approve.
I approve as well. So we'll move right along to the consent items. Are there any items that are not on the agenda that we need to brief for consent? Seeing none, we are clicking right along. Let's get into general business. Now, did we, someone said we needed to move some things around?
Councilmember Hancock, if we could have first the 38th agreement, and then we have some key folks from RTD with us today, and I believe they are last on the agenda.
Yes.
So we're going to move them up
Okay,
on the agenda after the Majestic agreement.
okay. All right, let's go.
Great. All right, I will get right into it. Let's see, is this coming up correctly? Perfect. Okay. Thank you, council members, for the time today to talk about this reimbursement agreement. This is for the 38th Avenue segment between Himalaya and Odessa. And this is a reimbursement agreement, the connectivity would be to complete the connection between Tower and Piccadilly. And there's Green Valley Ranch to Denver to the north, Majestic Commerce Center to the south. And then on the east of Piccadilly is Green Valley Ranch and another portion of Majestic Commerce Center. And then bounded by E470 on the east side there. This segment of the roadway is required by Majestic for the Food Bank of the Rockies CO. So it's critical that this infrastructure get constructed. As part of the vesting development agreement with Majestic, the city is obligated to fund the design and construction of this segment of the roadway. 5.2 million was approved through council in the 2025 budget process, and then the remaining 400,000 to get to I think it was 5.6 million is in the supplemental that's going to, I think, study session on Monday night. If that additional 400,000 is not approved, then we won't have the funding available to be able to provide the reimbursement for this segment of roadway. And we would violate the city's contract and agreement with Majestic for this reimbursement. The city is working with ARDA to get a reimbursement from ARDA to the city to make the city whole on this segment of the roadway. And then there is a little future segment of East 38th Avenue. You can see it kind of delineated on the east side there. There's a bridge that needs to go in that segment, and Aurora and Denver are working on the structure selection report along with ARDA to complete that segment that will complete the connection over to Piccadilly. And short and sweet, we're asking for the council policy committee to support the resolution for a reimbursement agreement between City of Aurora and Majestic Commerce Center regarding the construction piece 38th Avenue moving forward to the next available study session. And this one we're asking specifically to have go forward on Monday for 21.
Understood. Any questions, Councilmember Lawson?
I just have one question, and I approve it moving forward. Just a financial question. So with the 400,000, has that been already allocated in our budget to pay this? Or I guess I was just a little concerned if we don't approve it, then, you can't move forward. But has this 400,000 been allocated already where there shouldn't be really any issue, correct?
Councilmember Lawson, I can take that question. So when we were working with Majestic Commerce Center on the estimate for the project, the estimate did increase while we were working with them. They got some verified costs. And so the 5.2 that was included in the budget was based on an initial estimate. To complement that, we've also budgeted for the revenue from ARDA.
to pay the city. The 38th project is included in Artist Master Plan, and we've been working with them closely for the last 8 months as we've been working with Majestic to ensure that we're well coordinated on receiving the revenue from ARTA to support the expense. So the city at the end of the day will be made whole. The 400,000 in expenditure that's being asked from council in the supplemental will be accompanied by 400,000 in additional revenue from ARTA for a total of 5.6 million. So
Okay.
council in the next few months will see an agreement come through between the city and ARTA to receive 5.6 million in funding, which will make us whole.
Okay,
Okay,
and where is this money coming from? The 400 out of the budget?
We have assumed revenue from ARTA, so it's an in and out,
Okay,
the way it's
Okay.
counted.
so we're not in the hole.
No, we're not
Okay.
gonna be in the hole, that's it. We're not
Okay.
gonna be using city revenues to cover the
Okay.
expense. We will be covered by ARTA.
Okay,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you for thank you for the question, and I approve this moving forward.
that was my question that you answered. I'm like, because we're balling on a budget, so I want to make sure we're not in the hole. So with that said, I approve as well. Okay, fantastic. Next up.
Thank you.
Right, Connecting Aurora, right? Yeah, my name is William. I'm a principal transportation planner with the planning department. I am the co-project manager together with Carly on this project, City's Transportation Master Plan. So this is another update. We have a transit focus today. We have RTD staff and the consulting staff here for them to talk about the efforts and the outcomes made recently by RTD, as well as what we heard on transit and some of the opportunities, recommended improvements on transit. So with that, I'm going to turn over to our project consultant team, project manager, Keith.
Thank you, William. As a reminder, I am Keith Borsheim. I'm with HDR, and I am the consultant project manager for Connecting Aurora. Happy to be presenting to the committee again today on this important topic of covering transit opportunities in Aurora. I'm going to give just a brief project recap for Connecting Aurora. Then we will go into, we'll turn it over to our partners here from RTD to update the council members on RTD's efforts to address some of the concerns that we've heard, not just from this council, but from the public and, region-wide. These are really region-wide concerns that RTD's making significant strides on addressing. Then Jonathan here is joining us. He's with Nelson Nygaard, which is a transit planning consultant and part of our consultant team. And he will go over some of the transit opportunities in Aurora and how we are moving forward with recommendations for inclusion in this visionary and then I'll briefly summarize some of our next steps. Okay, so just a reminder here of our vision and mission, as well as the goals that we've developed. So I'm going to read really quickly the vision and then go over some of the goals. So our vision is that Aurora safely connects all people to our places for a healthy, sustainable, and economically strong community. And the mission here is the city of Aurora will provide a complete transportation system to meet the needs of all people. The city will engage the public in the delivery of plans, programs, policies, standards, and projects. And then you can see we've developed the 10 goals, and these 10 goals did receive council support late last year. But just a reminder that transit's really important to our ability to achieve these goals over the next 20 to 30 years. And we're going to go over some of the reasons that's the case today. It's really important that we have a true multimodal transportation system here in the city of Aurora to meet all of these goals. I'm not going to read all of the goals because you all have seen them before many times. Okay. Okay, so why does transit matter to Aurora? Well, Aurora is a key part of the regional transit network. The city's population is about 13% of RTD's boundary. And we contribute here in Aurora about 10% of the revenue and sales tax revenue to the RTD system. And we receive about 12% of the region-wide service. Many Aurora residents have expressed to us through part of this process desire to take transit, and many Aurora residents are dependent on transit, particularly our younger and older populations who can't drive or choose not to drive for whatever reason. Aurora and our partners have already invested heavily in transit infrastructure, things like the R line and the upcoming East Colfax BRT. Transit works for people who don't have access to private cars or can't drive. Aurora has a little bit higher percentage of households that have fewer cars in their household than they do workers. And that means that people have to move around in another way. About 10% of Aurora's households have fewer cars than workers. And that's actually different around the city. So that's one of the key things that we're going to be looking at is how different parts of the city might need access to transit in different ways. As Aurora grows, both with infill and in new areas, transit will be a more space efficient method for people to move around the city. Quick summary, you guys, many of you have seen this before, but most people who are interested in but do not currently use public transit say it is because the services are unavailable where and when they need it. Of those who do take transit, they do it because they can't drive either for health reasons or due to legal trouble, or it's more affordable. And those who want to drive or take transit believe it's more affordable and better for the environment. Top 3 desired transit improvements: security, more frequent service, and better transit operations, more reliable. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that we have received support for the vision, mission, and goals, and support for this multimodal approach to the transportation network. Key priorities for transit moving forward are safety, security, reliability, as well as effectiveness of moving around in Aurora. The effectiveness of active transportation modes, including walking and biking, in a city that is, quite frankly, a little bit more spread out than other cities in the region, and a need to provide transportation networks that are context sensitive. So recognizing that Aurora is not monolithic here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our partners with RTD, who are going to provide a little bit of background on some of their presentation that they recently gave to their board. So I'm not sure who's taken first. I start.
Hello, Michael Davies. I serve as the Government Relations Officer for RTD. One, thank you to council for the opportunity to join and interact. And a big shout out to City of Aurora staff. We have a great partnership and enjoy a really great communication back and forth. And just a big thank you to all. I think our slides are in here. Perfect. Before I start on a number of slides here, I have a couple of colleagues from RTD, and I want them to just introduce themselves before we begin.
Sure. I'm Jesse Carter. I'm the Senior Manager of Service Development. My group is responsible for operations planning for rail and bus, the district. I'm actually a resident of Aurora and have been for many years, and actually born and raised in Denver, Colorado. Worked for the RTD for about 30, 40 years, so they tell me. And so who else do we have?
My name is Sergeant Jason Spillis. I'm with the RTD Police. I'm a sergeant with them. We're in charge of day-to-day operations as far as police activities, and some of the operations that we're going to talk to are about today. This is my partner, Sergeant Lori.
Hello, all. I'm so happy and excited to be here with all of you to talk about our vision and our mission, our goals. My name is Alicia Valerio. Like you said, I am his partner. We are 2 sergeants on day shift, working together side by side, and just happy to be here.
Great, thank you. So these slides are intended to give a good overview of some of the priorities and initiatives that RTD is working on. We think they connect well with connecting Aurora out, and obviously transit is an important piece of that. So we hope that through some of the strategic priorities that we're focused on, that helps answer some of the questions of where we're going in the future, and beyond these slides, of course, happy to answer any other questions. So to begin, what you see here are the strategic initiatives that RTD is focused on. We did not just make these things up. They are very much community driven. This is the same feedback that you all have heard from your community members with regards to transit. We have heard with regards to RTD's service. So starting with back to basics, this is really just to recognize that RTD has significant state of good repair, maintenance backlog issues. We've worked hard. I know the city of Aurora experienced some of those maintenance issues with the coping panels project on the R line. I'm sure many that have ridden the light rail know that there's slow zones as a result of rail defects or what we call rail burns on the rails. Those are maintenance issues, and RTD is working hard to basically get back to a state of good repair and have a much better process going forward so that the impacts to customers are much less when we do have to do maintenance. So moving on to people power. People power is really a recognition that we really need to focus on recruitment, retention, and training a proper workforce that can deliver the services. About 70% of RTD's budget goes to salaries and benefits. It is a very labor intensive service to deliver. And so we know that we need to do a really good job and focus at a strategic level on making sure that we have that workforce so that we can continue to grow and deliver more service. A welcoming transit environment. I hear this from a lot of customers. And of course, totally understand, customers want to feel like they're secure and they're safe when using RTD. It is a top priority for us. We've undergone a multi-year effort to really bolster our in-house police force, post-certified trained officers. And some of that is transitioning away from contracted third-party security and again, really investing in in-house post-certified police force. And customer and community connection. This one was a new strategic initiative for this current year. And it's really a recognition that patterns have changed, I think, with our customers. We need to recognize that, and we want to make sure that we're connecting communities and connecting where people want to go. This isn't necessarily where people were going pre-pandemic, and we have efforts underway to really look at what has changed and how can we change in the next 5-6 year iteration of how RTD delivers transit to the community and recognize that this is a really important piece of our efforts. Just a quick overview, RTD's financial outlook, we're relatively stable. We're in a really good position, especially compared to other major transit agencies in other major metro areas around the country. We do not project any deficits in our 5-year financial forecast. And that really is, we go out 5 years. Once you go beyond 5 years, it starts getting a little bit of a crystal ball, and 5 years is a good time frame to have some certainty. As I said, we don't have any deficits. We enjoy AAA bond ratings. That is to the credit of our board. Our board has taken some efforts in recent years to really refinance debt and make sure that we have a good handle on paying the large amount of debt that we do have. So our fiscal outlook is very stable. That does not mean that we don't have big expenses and big challenges, again, for that maintenance and state of good repair for the decades to come in the future. But for the time being, we're in a good spot. This is really just to say that, again, personal safety and security, we hear this a lot, and we know that it's a top priority for individuals that want to come use the system. So it's really just a recognition that we've taken a lot of steps to essentially really enhance that welcoming transit environment. Next slide. Want to highlight some of the recent progress that we've seen. This one really is focusing on that safety and security aspect of things in the welcoming transit environment. Again, this multi-year effort to bolster our police force. In 2023, we really had about 19 post-certified officers on our police force. We're closer to about 100 now, and we're not stopping there. We want to recruit more and be more in that 150 range by the end of the year, and with goals further on next year. So with some of the efforts that we've seen and done over the last year, This is just really some data that has come in somewhat recently, comparing February of 2025 to February of 2024. We've seen a 52% decrease in security-related calls. Again, just one data point that we think we're going in the right direction. We think that some of the efforts that we've made are having an impact on, obviously, less security concerns from our customers on a day-to-day basis. Again, just down there at the bottom with regards to drug activity, we know, again, that is something that leads to people's perceptions of not being safe on the system. Seen an 82% decrease in year over year on those stats. Next slide. Moving over more to the operations side, because I think those are the two things. Of course, customers, they want to see reliability and frequency in our transit, and then they, of course, want to be feel safe and secure while using our system. On the operations side, this is just a slide of our dashboard that is publicly available on our website. We have goals within our agency to improve these data metrics over time. And this is really just an example of what the public can see and track along with us as we make improvements. So this is just our bus operations. Next slide. This is our rail operations. Again, I won't read through all of the stats, but we have goals to increase the service reliability of both bus and rail. And this is just an example of how we're tracking it and making it publicly available to those that are interested. And that's really it for RTD in terms of this, our slides that we presented, but obviously have my colleagues here and can dig into certain specific lines, or if there are specific issues with certain stations that are more on the security side, happy to answer questions.
Well, thank you for that presentation. I appreciate that. Councilmember Lawson, do you have any questions or comments before I add mine?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much for the presentation. Just a question. One thing that I kind of wanted to find out based on the light rail frequencies. So pre-COVID, I used to take the light rail a lot, and it used to be on time at the 9 Mile station, and also to take it to sporting events and things like that. Currently, I mean, it's at 62%. Which I still think is pretty low. One of the, people who work downtown frequently or have to go downtown, it's a convenience if we could take the light rail because parking is so expensive. But because I know frequently I've tried to take the light rail a couple times and it's been late, so I'll just go and get in my car and just pay the $15 and $20 that I got to pay. Do you see this 62.58% going up on the frequency? And this isn't due to maintenance. This is just due to why the light rail is just late at the 9 Mile station. So I'm not going to sit there if I have to be somewhere and wait. So it's just like, I'll just get in my car because at least I'll get there. So do you see this going up, and what's the strategy for this to make the frequency a little bit better for the 9 Mile stations, the stations that you have here? I mean, where is that really in the strategic plan too? So sorry for the long inundated question and comment.
Thank you for that question, Councilwoman Lawson. 62% is not our goal. 62% is way below goal for light rail. Light rail goal sits at about 92% on-time performance, so we are 30% off from where we want to be. I will have to say that a lot of the work that's being done in the PR corridor, which is the 225 corridor, the slow orders there are affecting our on-time performance. So the H line and the R line are directly affected by the work that's being in the corridor. When you look at the H line, it's doubly affected. It's affected in the segment on 225 and then affected again on the southeast corridor where a lot of work has been done. So at this point in time, as Michael mentioned in his presentation, we are redoubling our efforts to get a lot of the imperfections that are on the rail taken care of by use of outside contractors using larger machines than we do with our normal maintenance. And we do expect to see those numbers increase. Matter of fact, we are feeder to the fire to make sure that that actually happens, because again, 62% is poor performance, and it's the poorest performance that I've seen here as far as on-time performance in my career at RTD. So that is a primary focus, and we hope to have that addressed in the coming months. We hope to see improvements, over the summer as the grind work is completed and as we get a handle on the normal calendar for state of good repair.
Okay, and just a follow-up question, Councilmember Hancock. When you go to the 9 Mile, and I live right by the 9 Mile station, so that's why I'm just referencing that. There could be other references as well. The 9 Mile station, in particular, just the safety of that garage, and when you go up to the platform, it's dark in that tunnel. So there's some safety issues with that particular station. Just the timeliness. I mean, I have a lot of constituents who want to take the light rail, but they don't feel safe at that particular station. And also, just like I said, and I'm glad you're going to find ways to bring that up. Until that comes up, I'm not taking the light rail at the 9 Mile station, because if I have to be somewhere and I have to, and I have a time and I'm even there earlier and it doesn't come, then I just get in my car and just pay the $15, $20 I got to pay downtown, which is really expensive if you have to go down there quite frequently. So thank you for that information, and I'm glad that there's going to be some work that's going to be done on the frequency on the R line. So thank you.
Noticed a couple times, because I took the train, the bus, and the light rail for 2.5 years. So I know it. I can get around this city on RTD. I know how to do it from east to west. So for me, I noticed lately, or it hasn't been in recent memory, but I see buses going from the Iliff station to the 9 Mile station. Is that because of the rail slowage that you mentioned?
Sometimes it's, and I'm sorry, this is Jesse Carter again, for those who may not see the meeting. There are times where we have elevator outages and we have to provide bus bridges between the stations so that people who have disabilities can actually still catch the train.
And how frequently has that been happening?
It's as the system has aged, it's starting to happen a little bit more, and that's something we have to look a little closer into, because the fact is, these elevator breakdowns are not something that you think of as part of transportation. You don't think of that being a core point, but it really is when it comes down to EDA. So we'll probably have to assess whether or not we have a robust enough system in place as far as the elevators.
That's why our 9 Mile bridge, or pedestrian bridge, is going to be vital, because those ramps will help with mobility, people getting to the light rail station, on who have to use wheelchairs and that kind of thing. So to address the lighting issue, again, because 9 Miles the station and I rode my bike to so I could get on the train, it is dark under there. Is RTD responsible for making sure that it's well lit under there? Because there used to be, like, I don't know what that thing was, some kind of a sculpture under there. It was like a dragon or a dinosaur. I don't know what that thing was.
It was a metal sculpture. I can't speak to exactly what it was.
I was like, what the heck is that thing up there?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'm gonna have to bring that up with our facilities maintenance folks to make sure our lighting is there. But one of the things that's with any public space, when it's active and you have a lot of people moving around, it actually feels safer, and we have to build back the trust, as far as reliable service, to bring back those customers. And I do think that's ultimately the best answer. But of course, we want the environment to be friendly as well. So we'll follow up with facilities and check to make sure that our lighting is good.
That'd be awesome, because there was a well-publicized assault of a gentleman trying to get on the elevator by a bunch of kids, underneath the station right there. And as someone who took it quite frequently, I'm former military, so I know how to handle myself, but others may not. So, you want people to feel like they can get on the train, they can take those routes, because I would catch it at 7 a.m. and it would be packed. What has the pandemic, post-pandemic, how are those numbers looking? Because I don't ride it now because I work here, but, riding that train from point A, 9 Mile down to Union Station, which was my route, it was our commute. How is the ridership then impacted because of this?
Okay, I'll speak to that. And again, this is Jesse Carter, RTD. I'll speak to that from a system level and then bring it down to the line level. From system level, prior to the pandemic, our day-to-day ridership was about 316,000 boardings a day, which is pretty good for a system our size. At this point in time, we roam between 200,000 and a little over 200,000. So a loss of 160,000 boardings a day is significant. Whether or not that is a permanent loss is, a question mark in all of our minds. But there are a couple of factors that we are seeing that are you know, indicative to lowering our expectations for ridership on the system. So downtown Denver has seen a reduction in the number of people who are employed in the downtown area, and that significance is shown up on our, as far as our ridership is concerned. And that has persisted, and it's not something that's gone away. So when we look at, when we bring it down to the line level, the H line, I want to say it used to do about 140 boardings per hour. Now we're seeing boardings in the 60 to 80 persons per hour. The R line has actually done fairly well in that it stayed the same, but it's still not in the triple digits that we'd like to see as boardings per hour when it comes down to rail line. So the system isn't as healthy as we'd like to see it. And just so you know, part of that, I won't say it's our fault, but it's part and parcel to changes in behavior as people around the metro area. But it's also part of the fact that we reduced our service 40% in reaction to COVID. And building back is, you know, difficult. So you have that the doubling of the fact that, you know, building double come doesn't work for transit. So we actually have to see that there's a need and a want for service. And that need and want has been, in a sense, if I'm honest, has been somewhat discouraged by the level of service that was offered. So we're going to have to look at and pivot our energy is right now, pivot the level of services we offer to places where we see a lot of ridership. That's not only on rail, that's on bus, and we do have lines, especially in or that are doing really well on responding to increases to service. So when I look at getting out to line level, Route 105 on Havana Street, doing great. Route 153, Chambers Road, doing great. 121, Peoria, doing great. East West is a little tougher. We've seen lower ridership on certain routes like the 3, but we're willing to go ahead and invest because we do believe there, again, looking at the entire network, there's an opportunity to help bolster more ridership by tying into major ridership generators like Anschutz and like downtown, certain larger neighborhoods. So we're not afraid, and we're committed to the SOB, the System Optimization Plan. We're committed to increasing service levels on both rail and bus to the point as specified in the SOB between now and 2027.
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, that was long-winded. I apologize for that. I'll try to keep my answers.
Well, I appreciate you saying that because it triggered another thought to me, and that is, as you know, we're 400,000+ city now, and we're expanding towards Kansas. And what I'm finding is that people, it's great that they can get to the 9 Mile station, but if they're trying to get to Southlands, for example, there's that one route. And if folks are trying to get up Quincy, I was working at Peak Line and Copperleaf, couldn't get there on the bus. It just didn't go up there, you know? So what are the plans to expand, you know, at least a little bit of transport out in those areas, because we want connectivity. That's our goal, right? To connect Aurora, right? So we want people from Southlands to come over to the best part of Aurora, which is Ward 4, where the restaurants are. I mean, I'm shamelessly promoting, but I mean, to my point, I'm just saying, what are we looking at in terms of future connectivity so that
I think that's a perfect lead in. We actually have a few more slides. Those were RTD slides. We have a few more that kind of tie in their current initiatives to what we plan moving forward with Connecting Aurora. So unless you have more maybe RTD focused questions, we can have Keith and team kind of go over that exact question.
I'm glad
Chair
you're.
Hancock, can I just ask just one quick question before we move on?
Absolutely.
So is the RTD Transit Watch, is that still the app that we can use to report any type of activity, illegal activity? Do you guys, do you look at that data? Because I have that app downloaded. I've had it downloaded for years. Is that the same app that can be used to report any type of criminal activity at these stations? When someone gets on there, or maybe you see something, is that still the same app to use that constituents can use?
Yes, ma'am. This is Jason Spillis with RTD Police. It's still the same app, and that app is being updated as we go, just to make it more prevalent for today.
Okay, thank you.
perfect segue, because I'm glad you guys are here, first of all. As someone who, again, took the light rail 5 days a week, and the train and the bus. And what I often, people have gotten very, I don't know, since COVID, very free with the drug usage and other unsavory items on the trains and the fights on the bus, especially East Colfax, notorious. I've ridden it from end to end. It's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So tell me how you guys are, just since you got the badge and the gun, so you look really serious. How are we feeling here now? And what are the implementation and changes so that the public is knowing that you guys are not rent-a-cops, you're real cops, and this is what you do?
Yes, ma'am, if I may go first. So I lateraled over from Auraria campus about a year ago now. And the reason why I did that is because I saw the need for RTD. And I am excited to say that we are making tremendous progress with safety and security, especially when it comes to the fentanyl crisis, the fights, and our unhoused population. And so we are very well aware of those needs. East Colfax, West Colfax, wherever you may find RTD, there's a need there for those scenarios. And one of the ways that we're addressing those issues is sector integrity. And sector integrity for us is that we are assigning officers per month for those certain sectors, so that one, they become familiar with those day-to-day individuals who are operating transit, but also with our transit operators as well. So with that being said, we have seen dramatic changes with our narcotic use and people who shouldn't be using transportation to those who should be on the transportation, who are paying for fare. So I'm happy to report that we are up and up in that area. Sarge, do you have anything else?
When we went through statistics, he threw out the numbers. We're right around 100 officers right now. Actually, we're more closer to about 90 officers. We're looking at going to 150 officers. Those 150 officers, that's an increase of 50 to 60%, depending on the daily numbers. That's a huge amount when you look at any type of business or anything like that. To add that type of personnel plus the logistics that go into it, it's a huge undertaking. They're doing a wonderful job right now trying to get that taken care of. With that, you also have transit security officers that are riding the lines. These transit security officers are going into the trains and they're riding along, and they kind of check, they report anything that happens. They're also able to be there to stop. One of the important things about safety or about transit is, again, you want to feel safe. You want to go in there and you don't want to feel like you're going to run across these drugs or run across the assaults or anything to that effect. The more personnel that we actively incorporate into our police department, that's going to assist with that. Again, the logistics, I'm not going to bore you guys with it, between the cars, the equipment, and all that. There's a lot that goes into it, but we're doing everything we can to make our community safe. And that's the purpose, is to make our transit as safe as possible.
So you do hotspot like we do at APD?
We do.
Hotspot policing, because the 15 is notorious. I got on one day and the guy was playing, he's out of his mind.
I would like to
Everybody
say
got off the bus.
Colfax is notorious. The 15
Well, yeah, I stand corrected, my good sir. Colfax is, it says the most wicked city in America, but East Colfax on the Aurora side is awesome. Okay. I just, when you have people who are under, all seriousness, get on under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and they get on the bus and it causes danger to everyone on the ride. That is one of the other reasons why people are afraid. They're like thinking certain routes they don't want to take because they know at certain stops it's going to be one way as opposed to the other way. I've ridden a 105 from end to end due to my work. On one end, it changes as we're going east, north to south. The demographics change, the riders change, the energy changes. It's just a whole thing. And I'm sure that you guys are, very cognizant of that and impacting that in a way. How spread out are you over the system?
You look at 8 counties, 40 different cities, I believe. So when you think of that concept, imagine going from, Boulder, all the way through Centennial and everything. I mean, it's a huge undertaking. We have, again, now think of 100 officers, you have 6 different shifts. So when you spread those individuals out, once we get to the point, I believe, and don't quote me on this, please, but I believe they're looking at about 250 officers in total and dividing them into sectors. Once we do that, we're gonna have officers in different areas that are able to respond a lot more quickly. At this point, with the minimum officers that we have for the large area that we have to patrol, it is hard and there's a larger patrol time. We are utilizing different municipalities, and I'm gonna tell you, thank you to Aurora, and thank you to all the other municipalities that assist us. We need you at this point. We are going to be become more self-sufficient. It's just not at this time. When we gain more personnel, that will be in the near future, hopefully, we can accomplish a lot more.
So are you recruiting them where from?
Well, I'll tell you this, I spent 22 years in Adams County, which is part of Aurora. And in Adams County, I went through, not to give you my resume, but SWAT detectives, all kinds of different things, patrol. So we're bringing officers from all these different areas with these type of experience. And the reason we're doing that is because when you initiate a new police department, you now have to train these individuals. It's hard to train individuals when you don't have any experience. So I retired from Adams County, so I ended up coming over to RTD and kind of took over that role. So we're bringing over all these individuals. We're gonna have a lot more experience. We're trying to train as much as possible and put them through a lot of different classes. We've actually added mental health associates that come with us, and which is a great thing, especially nowadays. We deal with the mental health crisis in Colorado. So what we do is we have individuals that specialize in mental health crisis that come with us to help de-escalate these situations so that way they don't grow to be bigger. So some of these incidents with the reduction of crime, because we have these individuals that are able to talk to these individuals with the mental health issues and offer them different ways instead of acting out, instead of the aggression and that type of thing. So we're doing a lot of productive and proactive things. Honestly, it's going to take time. We're gonna have to add these individuals to our roster.
I appreciate that so very much that you're saying that. And thank you. This is great. This is what I've been asking for. So thank you so very much because, you cannot, in connecting Aurora, the things that we're trying to do, you cannot, forget about this component. It is vital. If we want people to, access the transportation, we can do all these services, but if they don't feel safe or secure, if they don't feel that the stations they go to are lighted and that, they can access wheelchair, crutches, whatever, people with sight issues, even hearing issues. If they're not able to do that, then all the things we're doing are really for naught. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness in this, and I understand the Herculean task that you're taking on. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling, and I think it's not something that we're all dealing. APD's dealing with it, Douglas County, all of our police folks are dealing with this, but the fact that you've added a mental health component to assist in de-escalation of issues, I think it's very thoughtful and very spot on. So thank you so much. I know we went down that rabbit hole for like 20 minutes, but I just feel like it's really important to just get there. I mean, because I want to feel confident that what we're doing is really having an impact and that we're not just sitting here flapping our gums thinking, oh, we're doing great, and things are not great. Things need to be great. And so we're going to keep our eyes on it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
And to close, I'll tell you, any issues or any questions or anything like that with RTD, please feel free to contact us at any time. We'll help and assist you in any way we can.
Fantastic. Okay, back on track. Sorry.
These are great
We'll
questions,
come
and we
back
really
to the-
appreciate
back to
our
the
team
center.
being here. So I'll turn it back over to Keith to.
Yeah, so thank you to our RTD partners for joining us. Like Chair Hancock said, this is a really important conversation that we have. We do have about 10 more slides that build on this conversation, and hopefully, we're seeing some momentum back towards great transit in the Denver metro area, including Aurora. And Jonathan's just going to go over how Connecting Aurora hopes to build on that momentum and go over some of the opportunities here. And this first one is all about the different roles that everybody plays.
Great, thanks Keith, and thank you council members for the opportunity to dive into some of the details about what we're looking into within Connecting Aurora in terms of improvements to transit. So just to start off, wanted to level set a little bit about the roles that different partners play in delivering transit service in Aurora, right? We know that RTD operates the vast majority of transit service within the region, so it's great to have our partners here in delivering service because they are a key player in making sure that our recommendations make sense and kind of align with their vision. But the city actually plays a pretty substantial role in facilitating transit in the city, throughout the city as well, right? I mean, RTD buses can only operate as efficiently as the streets that they, operate on, and the city, by and large, is in charge of most of the streets that RTD buses are using. The city has also been stepping in and taking a more active role in providing other types of transit service. I know Councilmember Lawson, you've recently sponsored a new on-demand program for older adults that the city is launching in partnership with RTD. And so those types of services are also potential ways that the city can lean in more and help deliver more transit service. So Connecting Aurora is really responsible for bringing together that vision for not only service improvements, but what on the capital side, what on the infrastructure side the city can do to help transit move more efficiently in the city. So on the infrastructure side, just to begin with, we know that the city of Aurora has already been a very active partner in delivering transit improvements throughout the network. Great example, East Colfax BRT now under construction. The city's been both a funding partner, and a partner throughout the design and planning and implementation process. This type of investment, it's a big investment, but it involves a lot of other players as well. The federal government is kicking in $150 million. City and County of Denver is obviously a big partner, RTD as well. And so making these big infrastructure moves, the city is an important player, but it's truly a partnership through a lot of different other funding sources as well. The city's also been an active partner with DRCOG in delivering the Havana Transit Signal Priority. This is, on the Route 105, one of the busiest routes in the network, really making transit a little more efficient by getting through signals kind of faster where they might get stuck. Right, with sidewalk improvements through the capital improvement program. Now, we know that there's more that can be done. And so one of the elements of Connecting Aurora is outlining a very visionary draft transit capital improvement network. And so this is looking at across the entire city, across the entire planning area, over the next 20 to 30 years, what other types of big infrastructure investments should we prioritize? More BRT routes like the East Colfax project, right? Places where there currently aren't, major kind of transit infrastructure like Jewel Iliff or Smoky Hill, right? East Colfax, east of I-225. That's a project that the city is currently leading a study for in partnership with DRCOG to explore how we might be able to extend the BRT project out to areas that are growing rapidly. We also know that there's not a need that's consistent across the entire city, right? There are other projects that we could pursue that are less intensive than a BRT project, right? Looking at making improvements to corridors that could get buses going faster, or even just making spot improvements, right? The Havana project is a great example of, looking at key places where transit might get stuck that you could make really small but really impactful infrastructure investments. Those are those kind of green corridors on the map. And then we've also identified, E470 as a potential future corridor in alignment with other regional efforts. So where I want to spend a little bit more time talking about, though, is the sort of the partner of the capital investments, which is the service network, right? So we know that RTD currently has, as Jesse mentioned, a system optimization plan looking at improving frequency on key routes in the system, but thinking out beyond 2027, out to 2050, right? We know Aurora is growing. What should the transit network look like in terms of the level of service being provided? So this is a very ambitious and very visionary vision for how frequently buses could be coming across the entire city, right? Going from very frequent service every 10 minutes, frequent transit service, this is the kind of service people can just show up. They don't necessarily have to check a schedule, right? Every 15 minutes or so, but also ways that we can expand coverage, right? Looking at routes that, may come every 30 minutes, but are reaching areas of the city that currently are hard to reach with transit. And then also looking at ways that we can expand some of these more targeted, smaller scale, what we call micro transit services in areas where, maybe it doesn't make sense to run a 40-foot bus, on a neighborhood street that's, twisty and turny and, maybe it's not very dense and so there's not as many people there, but how can we still provide transit service for those parts of the city as well? So we've kind of broken this out into a couple of different elements. So we're thinking about ways that the city can help expand frequent transit service. Obviously, RTD is the major player in delivering that service. And RTD stands to actually receive a substantial influx of operating funding from the state through SB 24230 that was passed last session. And that will direct some oil and gas fee revenue to help RTD potentially expand its frequency on key routes. But beyond that, we know there are other jurisdictions in the region that have actually put money forward to what we call buy up service. So basically providing RTD with funding that they can use to run certain routes within those jurisdictions more frequently. We also know that in terms of expanding coverage, this is something where a lot of the partners beyond RTD can be really impactful. There's a great example currently too of a microtransit pilot service. NETC, Northeast Transportation Connections, is currently offering from the Highlands or Highlands Development to some groceries in the 40th Airport A-Line station. Could we expand that idea to more areas in the city, right? This is something, if you go to the next slide, that's already underway, right? Two projects are currently starting through a partnership effort with RTD. I mentioned the older adult transportation focus sponsored by Councilmember Lawson that the city's currently preparing an RFP to find and hire a service provider for. There's also a employee-focused shuttle that will serve the Majestic Commerce Center area to connect, employees working at those new distribution centers, warehouses, to either, other destinations, especially like other transit stops that they can transfer from. Beyond those service and capital improvements, though, there's a host of other programs that we're looking at within Connecting Aurora to help really integrate transit into this multimodal vision. Bus stop amenities, I think Councilmember Hancock, you mentioned this. Bus stops are currently, there's a big range of different bus stop amenities and kind of conditions across the city, right? RTD is currently working on a study that is looking at completing a holistic inventory of bus stop conditions across the network and working with partners to find ways to prioritize improvements at those bus stops, especially for accessibility. But we know that that's a place the city could lean in as well. And then there's other, we like to say that every transit trip starts and ends with a pedestrian trip, right? Most people who are accessing a bus are getting there by walking or biking or rolling. And so the city has a really important role to play in making sure that sidewalks are complete. People have, safe, comfortable bike facilities that they can get to and from bus stops or rail stations. And so that's another element that we're really prioritizing within Connecting Aurora. And then beyond that, there's other ways that the city plays an important role, things like land use, right? We know that transit works really well when people are, jobs and places where people can live are close to stations, close to bus routes. So how can the city make sure that that land use vision aligns with the transit vision? I think that's all I had.
Yeah, so just real quick, we are right in the midst of turning all of these big picture network recommendations into actual project recommendations and defining what those projects might be. That's going to be a draft list that comes to city staff in the next few days, actually. We are currently rolling these networks out to the public for comment. So right now we have an online open house that's open, and we are going to engage with the public at the Engage Aurora live event here this weekend, plus a roundtable next weekend. So we're doing as much as we can to engage as many folks as we can to get comments on these. All that turns into these project policy and program recommendations. That's our next big step. And then drafting the plan over the next few months. So lots of work yet to do, but making great progress so far, aiming for that adoption later this year.
Sounds like you have a lot of moving parts there. And I do appreciate the effort and the activity, and thank you for the report. I appreciate that a lot. I think about, you know, we've had some discussions about bus stops and the consistency of how they look and who's responsible. I get calls about that all the time, where people are like, well, this bus stop's a wreck. Who's responsible? Is it us or is it RTD? It would be great to have some consistency in knowing who that is, so I'm not yelling at the wrong people.
It really, and the answer to the question is, it really depends.
See?
Sometimes it's-
Yeah, sometimes it is. And so I want to see if we can get that, it would be great to know, so that when people call us about it, we're able to say, well, RTD takes care of this part and we take care of this part. That way I don't have to harass staff and open up council requests all the time about it. Because it's just, again, it goes back to the safety, it goes back to the feeling that people have about taking transportation. And like you said, you walk to the bus stop, and if it's icky, you're not gonna wanna stand there, So, that's that. Councilmember Lawson.
Just a comment. Thank you so much to RTD for the support of the older adults. I think that's going to be really important. And I really do appreciate the support from RTD on that effort. Just a question, just because I've lived in a couple major cities, the Bay Area, and then also I've lived in Washington, D.C. And one of the things I wanted to ask, has there been any thought, because I lived on the Baltimore side of DC, so I would park my car and do a park and ride. With the Metro, is there any thought about having some park and ride type things where you can, I know that's an infrastructure cost, but just for people who live out east to maybe have a park and ride and then bring them into a light rail station or a bus stop area?
Great question, Councilmember. Yes, one of the elements we didn't touch on in the presentation that kind of touches on all of the modes is we're going to be looking at what we call mobility hubs, where there might be opportunities for these, major kind of transfers between modes. And, one of those transfers, right, is people driving, parking their car, maybe transferring to transit. So I think the park and ride element will be something that we're going to be looking at as part of those mobility hubs. And those would be citywide, including especially out towards the east where, we know transit service currently isn't as available.
And I noticed too, also in your presentation on, as we're growing out manufacturing and those, like Amazon and all those guys out in that area, difficulty with those low paid workers,
Yes.
Getting from the interior out there. Have you guys ever thought about, I know you're partnering with these companies, do they have, like, in the stadiums, do you have naming rights? This is, to raise capital so that you can increase the services out to those areas?
It's a tricky one. Go ahead, Tom.
I believe I may have mentioned this at an earlier meeting, I don't recall who with. The example of the Majestic Commerce Center micro transit on-demand shuttle that's being operated by NETC. The city is not contributing any funding towards that. That local match is being provided by the Majestic Commerce Center. And that is a commitment for 3 years that they're going through that right now as an agreement between Majestic Commerce Center and NETC.
How's that there? Is that going well?
Well, that RFP is being prepared, but Majestic Commerce Center has committed to 3 years of that local funding.
So as we grow east, that would be something that you're gonna be looking at going forward as something you put on the table?
Yeah, that would be a possible model to use as we grow east. Especially in those situations where, there's an acute need at one particular location, but that there may not be enough need that would connect to, that would make sense for RTD to extend a standalone line out there.
I might just add, there's an ongoing travel demand management project. We work with NETC with the area businesses. The goal is to really form a transportation management association, so we can work together with those businesses to address the transportation needs for that area.
Good. I like that idea. I think that's an example of forward thinking that we talked about, Laura, that, you know, as we build and grow, not all the jobs are going to be high skilled jobs where people are making $80,000 a year. Some of them are making $15 an hour, but they still have to get to work. So, I mean, to make it cost efficient for them to go, I mean, if you're paying more for transportation than the job, then what's the point? You know, and these entry level positions are important. And so that we build in the infrastructure and the transportation mechanism so that people can get from the interior of Aurora out east is something we really, I appreciate that you're keeping your eye on that. So that's good. Anything else, Councilmember Lawson, on this piece?
Nothing for me. Great presentation. Thank you.
That's really good, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. My brain is bigger by the moment. Talking about it, I mean, like I'm a transportation guru. That's my story of sleep. Okay, where are we at now? I'm sorry.
Guidance for guardrails.
Ah, yes, guidance for guardrail. That's okay. Let's go there. No, thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Air Force. You're in the rear. That's
20,
6.
well, I put some active and I want to reserve out. After that, that's how I. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Daughter's Air Force. So thank you. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I was in the Zoe, but
I won't hold it against you. Wow, that was really good. They did a fantastic job. I'm very impressed. I like it. I feel better about it.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, what do we have? What do we got now? I'm sorry, I got totally off the beat.
Turning it over to Kathy.
Kathy.
Oh, Kathleen. Hi, Kathleen.
Guardrail, very exciting. I don't know if we can follow that. I'll try my best. So I'm Kathy Valencia. I'm the Transportation Project Delivery Manager for Public Works. And today I'll be talking about our proposed guardrail guidelines. Just to clarify, these guidelines are for our guardrail requests for existing roadways. All right. So this slide has a lot of words, but to summarize, we receive a lot of guardrail requests in Public Works. Most of the requests are to protect fences. And we have a lot of fences in the city. So we need criteria to help define when guardrails should be installed. This criteria will allow us to uniformly assess all of these guardrail requests that we are getting. Just a little bit on guardrails. So AASHTO is the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. We follow AASHTO for guardrail guidance. However, this guidance is not black and white. So it's very subjective. And so we need to develop our criteria so that we can use this to follow as we receive these guardrail requests. One quote I want to say just straight from AASHTO, guardrail is meant to reduce the probability of a vehicle striking an object that is less forgiving than striking the guardrail itself. So imagine a brick wall, yes, guardrail is needed. A fence, no, it would be less forgiving to strike the fence than the guardrail. That's one thing we need to keep in mind because it can actually be more dangerous to strike a guardrail at times than another obstacle. I want to talk a little bit about the clear zone. Clear zone is something we look at a lot when we receive these guardrail requests. So clear zone refers to the unobstructed travel way to allow a driver to safely gain control if their vehicle leaves the roadway. Ideally, in an urban environment, we have a clear zone of 4 to 6 feet on either side of the roadway, but as you drive around the city, you'll notice that doesn't have, there's a lot of obstacles in the clear zone, but we can't guardrail the whole city. And so that's why we're making sure we develop this criteria to guide us. Okay, a little bit of background information on our existing program. $560,000 was spent in the last 5 years on guardrail requests. And these are retrofit requests. So we get, like I said, we get a lot of requests from citizens. In the past, a lot of the times the guardrail was installed as more of a quality of life was kind of the way we looked at it before. But now the problem is we're getting a lot of requests and we can't afford to put in all this guardrail. So over $400,000 was spent on guardrail repair since 2020. We received 18 requests last year and we currently have 20 requests in queue, which we've told the citizens is on hold while we finalize this criteria, so we can best put guardrail where it's needed in the city. Doing a little bit of math on the guardrail costs, if we were to install guardrail for all of the requests we currently have, it would be between 1.3 and 1.4 million dollars. And the problem is with citizens, when they see guardrail, their neighbor's fence, they say, I want that too. And then we get another call for request. I wanted to put this picture in here for this slide. This was guardrail that we installed last year, and within 3 weeks it was hit. And you can see that it didn't protect the fence. Guardrail's not meant to be struck head on. So this is our new flow chart that we will be using for the new guidance. That there's defining criteria. So I'll kind of go through it because I know it's a little bit small, but there must be a posted speed limit of at least 40 miles per hour. There should be like a sharp curve or a steep decline in the road. Next, we look at, is there a hazard in the clear zone, such as a body of water, steep slope, culvert, or a fixed object that cannot be removed? And then is there a crash pattern? So we can look at all of these things and help guide us to determine if guardrail should be installed. If guardrail is not warranted for a request, we refer the applicant to our our traffic calming program, where Carly's group can look at other ways that we could maybe slow people down, make the intersection safer. It could be like a signal timing thing. But a lot of these accidents that are occurring are related to speeding. And so another thing we can do is contact APD and focus on enforcement, trying to slow people down. And one thing I did want to say with that cost, that didn't include the recent tariffs on steel. So we know that price will go up. So that 1.3 to 1.4 million that I had earlier in the slide, that's actually most likely higher. Another thing that we tell people when, if we can't install guardrail near their fence, and I know that a lot of people are worried about safety in their backyard, and that's completely understandable. We do tell them that they can install boulders on their side of the fence to protect their backyards for more of a safety feel. So this is a list of some of the roadside hazards that are in the new criteria. Trees and utility poles. As you drive around the city, you'll see all kinds of trees in the clear zone and utility poles. And like I said, we can't protect all of them. And so that's why this guidance really helps us, because it considers speed, it considers curves in the road, and so on. Embankments can be protected with guardrail, bodies of water, habitable structures such as homes and businesses. You've probably seen in the news homes getting hit. That would be where you'd want guardrail installed. Fences, we clearly state in there that fences are not intended to be protected by guardrail. And then another place would be places where people congregate, like schools, playgrounds, or high pedestrian use areas. So then key considerations with these guidelines, that guardrail shouldn't be installed on roadways with higher speeds, which is what guardrail is meant to do, keep people on the roadway. Guardrail should be reserved for instances that could prevent a more serious crash and not to protect personal property. Standalone hazards should be removed or relocated out of a clear zone if possible. So this would be something where if there was a pattern that we were noticing, maybe we would take down the tree or relocate a pole outside the clear zone instead of installing guardrail. And then let's see, the traffic calming is another. I just wanted to summarize with that last element that like I said, a lot of these cases of fences getting hit is distracted driving and speeding. So what other ways can we solve that problem without installing guardrail? One of the things we did recently was signing, so more visible. There was a curve in the road, so guardrail, it would have been a head-on hit. So instead we put a lot of signing up. Carly's group helped with that so that it was more clear to drivers that there's a curve in the road and be cautious. So that was everything. And then I can take some questions or have a discussion.
That's funny. I was just thinking about the house that got hit. There was, I can't remember the street, but they put big giant boulders there. Car went over the boulders, hit the house anyway. So it's just to your point of sometimes installing these guardrails at this cost may not necessarily prohibit accidents and damage and those kind of things. But I think to your point, Carly, about, and Cindy, everybody, traffic calming, speeding, because I'm getting a lot of complaints, especially in neighborhoods. People want guardrails because people are speeding. That's not gonna stop people from speeding. We've got to think of some less costly and more effective ways of keeping people from speeding, particularly through neighborhoods. And that's the one thing about that now that it's not snowing. I'm happy, but I'm sad because I know people are gonna start racing again. You know, we're gonna start hearing that again, and it's gotta be a way that we can mitigate the speed racing. We can't put speed bumps everywhere, and people have got to take ownership of their own lives. You know, you can't be speeding and texting and then think you're not gonna hit something. So I understand, I like the criteria. I think it's a good model. Again, you put a fence up, and if you're on the curb, those are the people that I'm getting comments from the most. If they're on a windy part of the road, they want to speed, they want a guardrail because they don't want people to sail into their backyard. So are you communicating with the owners who put in these requests and explaining to them the efficacy of a guardrail and why not this is not a good idea?
And that's a great point, because we have a consultant on board, and one of the things they're doing is creating a fact sheet. So we're gonna have a nice website set up explaining when do you put in guardrail and when do you not, and like what are some other things they can do if their fence is getting hit. And a lot of these are repeat hits, but the problem is, and Carly can verify this, they're just random accidents. It's not a pattern. It's just really bad luck, honestly.
Okay.
So yeah, but we do communicate to the residents that we follow this criteria. They don't meet warrants, but these are the things you can do to protect your yard. And just an explanation of what guardrails meant for.
Okay. Have you identified ideas or areas that have been consistently hit?
We've had some. So this is Carly Campuzano, just for people who can't see, Deputy Director of Public Works. One example is 4th and Havana. We worked with the property owner there and with CDOT as well, since Havana is a state highway. And it's a house on a corner, which makes it really tough because guardrail on a corner, it's not meant to be hit head on. So someone would just go right through guardrail. So we actually worked with CDOT and the property owner, and we installed a raised turn island because people were going right through the right turn lane into the fence, and there was actually a crash where somebody hit a house. So we had a meeting on site. We worked with CDOT, designed and installed a turn island. Even doing that was way cheaper than guardrail. And I don't want to jinx us, but we haven't had. I'm not going to say it out loud. You know what I'm about to say. So it's been successful, I will say. And there's other examples where if they're at an intersection, we look at the crash patterns. If there's a crash pattern, can we change the left turn phasing? Like Kathy said, can we put in signage to warn of a curve or something like that? We have honestly, the project in Councilmember Lawson's ward, we're installing roundabouts on a curve just because guardrail wouldn't help with the situation. So there are a lot of examples where if there is a crash pattern, we found a different engineering solution or relied on APD and have had them help with enforcement or things like that. So hopefully that makes sense.
I think information will be key though.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
helping people understand, just because you want a guardrail doesn't mean that's the end all solution to the issue.
Yeah, and I want to put an exclamation point on the enforcement piece. So we always say the 3 E's are engineering, education, and enforcement when it comes to issues like this. But Carly, we're in regular communication with APD on frequent speeding areas. We have them, ask them to go out. And so that's also a partnership that we have for this as well, for areas that we're experiencing frequent speeding.
Good. Councilmember Lawson.
Yes, and I want to thank, there also is another great example of, I understand about this guardrails, but when you come along Smoky Hill, actually it's right by my house, Tufts, there's guardrails with the lights. We've had significant accidents there. It has decreased. I know a motorcycle went and had a death there. So I do think for that particular intersection, when it's sloping around, because it is like a racetrack still, it does kind of help with the lighting. You guys have little lights on the guardrails as well. So that's another great example that I think the crash pattern has significantly decreased, even though people are still speeding, because I'm still seeing the speed racing on both sides of where I live at. I'm in the center of east of Smoky Hill and west of Parker Road. So, but I do think that guardrail along that part right there has been significantly helpful, especially along with adding the lighting. So thank you for doing that particular project for that rail around there. So I guess what my question is just in general, really this program is going to be based on if it's significant speeding or if there's a crash pattern. Pretty much that's what you're going to be looking at if guardrails are going to be installed. That's what I'm basically getting from this presentation. Is that correct?
There's a couple more actually. So speeding, it has to be 40 miles per hour or greater. And then if there's something in the road, like a curve or a steep downgrade or a drop off, it would have to meet that requirement. And then is there a fixed hazard in the roadway? So is there something that we're trying to protect the driver from?
Okay.
And then it goes into, is there a pattern of crashes?
And just a follow-up question. So if we're kind of moving down, we're not going to be really, it's going to be really hard criteria to get a guardrail. You're talking about now we're looking at other ways to stop the whatever's going to happen before we can really get to this, a guardrail being implemented. Is that correct?
Correct. I think a lot of
Okay.
times, yeah. A citizen might think the guardrail will protect their fence, but there's other solutions that are better. And that's what we're just trying to convey with our fact sheet and just providing this information to citizens and giving them this guidance.
That'll be good for my residents because I know that in my area, in other areas as well. So I'm glad that there can be an alternative with maybe some boulders or things like that because I have a lot of fences along my corridors. So this will be good, I guess, information. I know some will be disappointed though about the guardrails, but I understand that there has to be a criteria and based on the expense as well.
And then offering up some alternative solutions, I think will be helpful too, and to help residents and constituents understand, what's the efficacy of this? Are we doing this just to make you feel better, or is it something that's actually going to make a difference should something occur? So I think all those possibilities should be explored. And then helping people, educating people about this, because a lot, folks don't know. They just think, put this up, it'll be better. And it may not be, looking at that crash with the guardrails, gnarly and the fence still got destroyed. So, I appreciate what you're doing and thank you for the presentation. Is there anything else, Councilmember Lawson?
Nothing for me.
Okay. Where we at? I forgot. We
Yeah.
jumped all over the.
Resolution for IGA between Aurora, Arapahoe County for Plains Parkway, Lehigh Avenue, and Piccadilly Road. It's Carly.
This is me, and I have two IGAs, and they will be short. These are short presentations. So again, this is Carly Campesano, Deputy Director of Transportation, Mobility, and Public Works. I know we've had a lot of items and have had a lot of good discussion this meeting, so thank you for hanging in there with me. Oh gosh, it started back at the beginning, so I am not going to go over this whole presentation again.
Because we already know it.
I put them all together to make it easier, and that clearly is, let's see. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to rapidly click there. I have them, I put them all in the same PowerPoint. I was trying to be efficient, Okay, so thank you.
Mess things up.
Technical difficulties. So this is an IGA between the city of Aurora and Arapahoe County to construct a traffic signal at the intersection of Plains Parkway and Lehigh Avenue and Piccadilly Road. So this graphic just shows the location. This is an IGA between the city and county because our right-of-way line actually goes right down the center of Piccadilly Road. Very convenient. So the east side is City of Aurora, the west side is unincorporated county. We reviewed this location with the county. We've evaluated it with them for a few years, and it does meet signal warrants, and it has for a few years now. And since this intersection is so close to the signal that we already have at Quincy and Piccadilly, once this is built, this will be maintained and operated and owned by the City of Aurora. And so we're working on the design now, and the construction hopefully will start next year in 2026. So the scope includes a new traffic signal, ADA ramps, and probably a slight median modification with the raised median. So we, the city, are managing the design and construction. And we prepared an initial construction estimate. It should be about 1.1 million. And so with this IGA, the city and the county will each pay 50% of that project cost, since it's the intersections in 50% of both of our jurisdictions. And so I do have a question on this item. The question is, does the committee support moving this IGA forward to the next available study session? And I, of course, can answer questions as well. So.
Councilmember Lawson.
No questions. I support moving it forward.
And I support and concur.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so there's one more IGA. Again, Carly Campuzano, Deputy Director of Transportation and Mobility and Public Works. This item is an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Aurora and CDOT for traffic signal maintenance. So I'll cover this a little bit more so you have a better idea of how we currently operate the signals. So right now in Aurora, we have about 100 or about 400 traffic signals in the whole city that we maintain and operate. 76 of those 400 signals are actually owned by CDOT. But we have an agreement with them that renews every 5 years that allows the city to operate and maintain these signals. And so the signals that are CDOT's are kind of just outlined on this map. So the main reason why it's beneficial for us to maintain and operate is because we have a lot of just city-owned signals directly adjacent to them. And having to coordinate between different agencies if we have signals a few hundred feet away from each other is really, really difficult. So it's much more efficient to have the same entity do all the coordination and maintenance within an area like this. So this is an IGA that we already have an IGA with CDOT, but it's up every 5 years and this is the renewal of that. So this will be another 5-year term with very similar conditions as the last one. So the scope is the same as last time around. CDOT increased the maintenance fee by 12%. So CDOT actually pays us each year to maintain these signals. And so this is the rates for each of the 4 years. They increased it a couple percent each year to account for inflation. So this is the total amounts that are covered in this IGA. And so our question for you on this as well is, does the committee support moving the resolution forward for this IGA to the next available study session? And I can answer questions. Yeah.
I support.
Does that mean they give us money?
They give us money.
Oh, I support that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I'm in for that. Let's get with, yes, we're falling on the budget. Yes, we need that.
Thank you. I wish all IGAs were like that.
Me too. I want all IGAs to give us money going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any miscellaneous matters for consideration? No? Any anticipated topics for our next meeting? And I appreciate y'all hanging in, you know, because I really, they triggered a lot of questions for me today, having RTD here. So thank you for hanging in. Any anticipated topics?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
I apologize.
there's Cindy called. She's opening up the bags.
Natalie May. Oh, my goodness. Hard to believe that it will be May.
I know, right? We're almost
Yes,
halfway done.
I know. So next month will also be another Connecting Aurora update focused on the network recommendations that Keith referred to today, and also a debrief on the public engagement. We will also probably be bringing, we mentioned previously, Safe Streets for All grant application. This will be the last year for that. So next month we'll probably be bringing some proposed projects to you for consideration for that grant application.
Okay.
So, and those are the two big items.
All right. We got two big ones coming up. All right. Well, next confirmed meeting will be May 15th, right here, same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you all for being here. Councilmember Lawson, thank you, and thank you. You are, I guess, I took extra 20 minutes out of your day, so.
No,
No,
it was
12:30. We're on
12:30.
time. We're
Are
five
we?
minutes early.
Are we?
We filled up the agenda.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, yay.
Yeah, we're on time.
I had 12 o'clock in my brain. I was like,
Oh, I'm
oh,
sorry.
crap. Everybody's like, I want to go.